Ben Spencer, let me let him in. I did that, yeah. Okay, that's all that's here. Ben Spencer's online. Ben Spencer is in attendance. Ben Spencer he's attending via Zoom. So we're online and we have one member attending from the vote. Yep.
Open the meeting. Wait, move right on to item 2. And there's no action there. Right? Did we read this right? We're getting minutes.
Correct,
to be approved.
for the next meeting.
Do you have a handout for that? We have it in the packet.
You will get those minutes as the list of them that you'll be getting for the next meeting. Yeah.
It'll be in the packet. We move on to 3.
Yes, sir.
And that is page 240009, 206 Monroe Drive. I just help me out. Members in the audience here for that one. Okay, thank you, Bill. So Bill, you're gonna go ahead and present.
Yep, so what we've got is, we've got a project for Even Stacy Human. We wanted to tear down a building that they have, a garage that they have right now that is an apartment and a garage. And we are gonna put them up a smaller garage, basically. It's gonna be a 32 by 34 garage. Not at the angle of the screen. We're gonna square that up, take off an outbuilding that's on there. We're gonna have a square building put up, just exactly like the house. Yep, we're adding, I think it was 136 square feet. The one that's got the culvert all the way down through it. Yeah, we're not messing with that. Don't even have to touch it. Don't have to do anything.
So it's just gonna be turned.
It's gonna be square. Now, if you look down there, the garage actually follows the stream.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Is it okay if we ask questions?
Sure. Well,
I don't want
It will be
to
at
mess
the
up
right
your
time.
meeting.
It will be at the right time. Bill, have you done the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, so Don, do you have anything to add? No. Bill. No, that's right.
No, I don't. There was 2 sets of materials that went out, so I just want to make sure everyone kind of got both that and they got blended together. I don't have anything beyond that right now.
That one we might want to say. But, procedurally, we want to go right to the
Is it
approval
complete?
for,
Is it
Okay.
complete? Yeah.
so that'd be the first one. Just folks understand, we have the presentation, and then we have the board decide to accept the application as complete. In other words, we got all the information we need. And so the form is to vote on that. And then from there, we open it up to the board to ask questions or contribute. And then we go to the public and they contribute. And then we, as a board, look at the application, decide that we want to do it going forward. That's the process. So I think the next thing in order is to accept it as complete.
Is it ready for you to begin the final process?
That's that motion to do it.
I'll make a motion that case number 24009. I won't read the full report, is complete at this time.
Is there a second? I'll second. Discussion? All in favor? Okay. So now we move on to questions of the board. I'll start with Aaron over here, to my left.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that we have one member who's not present. Jim is not present, as well as Betty, and I neglected to say that he's not online yet, so Jim is not here to vote
So nobody's present online.
online as a board
Board
member.
is here.
Correct.
But that means friends of voting members.
We need to make sure, yeah.
Thank you for that. Question.
I had one that's, that it was a little concerning, so. Based on our conditional use permit number, page 53, number 8, it says specifically we have to address the floodplain. So this building is in the floodplain. The instant you take this building down, it is illegal for you to build a new building, period. The federal law, not a state law, not a town law, that's a federal law. So in accordance with the National Flood Insurance Programs, any building that's within the floodplain, once it's removed, cannot be replaced. So the building has to be rebuilt higher to be out of the floodplain. Floodplain, the 100-year base flood elevation is 214.7 feet. And Maine state statute requires you to be 1 foot above that. And the town, knowing that, we're not allowed to let you take that building down and put a new building up, because that's in violation of a federal policy, which could then kick the entire town out of the flood insurance program, which means nobody in town could get flood insurance, and the town couldn't apply for any federal grant. So I'm sure that everybody's in agreement, being that we're a very water heavy town, that that's not a very good idea. So that to me was something that we probably need to address.
So how do we,
There's really a couple of different options. One is to elevate, which again is going to be against your elevation, and it's a garage. So it's not like a building where you could build a foundation or build up. So you could basically elevate your building to go around it, but then you're going to have problems on the backside with that stream and other challenges. It's really going to depend on your surveyor coming in and evaluating what is the elevation, because you're pretty close. So it's 214.7, and again, you have to build, even an auxiliary structure has to be out of the floodplain, has to be 1 foot above that as state statute. So that's
crazy law, there's a building there already.
it's a federal law.
Yeah.
So it's the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it's the way that it works. The way the flood insurance program works is that you can't rebuild in the floodplain. You have to elevate or put it out of the floodplain.
Greg, do you have a sense what the current elevation is?
It's 214.7. I looked it up on the published effective flood insurance study.
And what it has to be a foot above that.
And state law says it has to be a foot above that. So, and it's hard to say exactly what elevation the line kind of goes through the garage, which doesn't make sense because the garage is flat.
Yeah.
So obviously it's closed.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're that far off. So you're gonna need a surveyor to come in, and it may be that you're only playing with 6 inches.
Right. Right. And we have what the foundation is. So we do have the ability.
And if it's a slab foundation in the lowest adjacent grade, and if
Yeah.
your slab foundation, it may be a small transition, something like that, that could be an option.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the elevation is for that. I
Right.
think we can make it happen, because like you said, it's only 6 or 8 inches if I remember
It,
right.
it could be, again, I didn't survey, I'm just basing on the topography and on the actual floodplain.
Yeah, it's not controversial.
So I think that's something we can go through. We don't wanna deny an application and then have to come back, so we can go through the rest of our questions.
Sure.
But that question is gonna possibly need a redesign.
Yep.
Because, to me, we can't approve that because that's not allowed.
They must have approved it at some point in time, because I put other
It's-
buildings in there. I don't know when
It's
that's-
possible, and it could be that the elevation has already been met.
Yeah.
But there was no indication on the plans, and we can't knowingly, once you take that building down, you cannot build it back.
Okay.
That's the important thing to know, just so you're aware.
Unless it's already above.
If it's
they
once
find
it's
out
above,
it's
yes,
above,
once it's above, then you're absolutely fine.
Right,
Once you know what that elevation is,
Oh.
you're fine.
and it possibly could be.
Yeah.
It's right there.
We'll
Yeah.
have to get that
You,
point.
you just have to survey.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I
This is
wanted to
not a
make
big
sure to bring that here and attention.
Before we get this stuff right out.
Then does the height come into play?
That's where it elevates, and now the height comes into the limitation of the height.
Yeah. Right after the two.
Yes, then it comes into the difference of the height of the
Yeah,
house.
you're
The
right
key
at-
was, we didn't want to go any higher than the existing building. That was our plan. There's 2 buildings on the site. This is not just, this is another garage that's there.
Yeah.
You know,
But in the shoreline zone, you're limited to 25 feet high, so.
right,
You're
we're right
stuck
there.
with that, and,
Yeah.
and that's fine unless you have to elevate it,
You've got,
then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
No, that was really my only question.
No, I read through it. I didn't really see anything. I guess it's not a comment here somewhere about the height, but you're saying the height now is how much?
it's the same as the existing house. And I think it's 25, if I remember right, it's just under 25 feet.
According to the drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Greg, I'm trying to think back, way back in history when I dealt with some issues like this. If there was a scenario where they said, we're not gonna tear it down, we're gonna leave the back wall up. And then remodel everything to accommodate what they're looking for, that gets them past the completely removing the building, correct?
Right.
And is there a threshold? Is
Yeah,
it leaving a wall in
it's-
place? Is it?
It's technically 60% is FEMA standard. So if you're not doing more than 60% improvement, but that's,
Ah.
that's a judgment call.
Tried.
You know, well, I mean, it's still a judgment call. Well, if you said, well, if you're adding a new building, well, what about the slab and the grading and all of that? What about the plumbing and all of the other?
Right, right, right.
So it's really hard to say for sure what all of that would cost. And are you doing more than 60% improvements of that building?
And 60% is based on cost and not square footage
No,
or,
right.
Okay.
Right, and like I said, it's somewhat, that piece is somewhat subjective. But again, if the structure is removed, the instant it's removed, you're done, you cannot rebuild.
Okay.
That's the way the statute's written.
gotcha. I don't have any other questions.
Anything to add?
This is,
You heard the discussion we had with Greg.
yeah, I did, and it's, I don't want to say it's new information because I know about the finished flood elevation being 1 foot above, but in regards to this and not being able to replace it, I have to check with Mark on that. I don't know how it's been handled in the past.
Right, and I mean, unfortunately, that's what I do in my day job, part-time, so I know what the statute says. So unfortunately, that is the rule,
Mhm.
and I don't wanna put the town in a situation where we get kicked out of the flood insurance program, that would be really bad. So,
Mhm.
Okay, I believe it was,
So all these new buildings that are like the new building, the new house that they put right in there, that was all set with the floodplain too, then, correct?
it could be if they surveyed it, I don't know.
Okay. so-
And
so
not
that
every
was like
town-
10 years ago.
It's not every town, you know, necessarily was not
Well,
follows the statutes, but the statute exists is
So
also.
that must have hit that must have hit the same threshold.
36.
Yeah.
Okay, so the board's done. I'll open it to the audience. Questions?
Okay, well, I have a couple of questions. One, where's the garage going in comparison to where it is now? It's gonna be basically in the same spot.
Same book.
Oh, okay.
Small. It's actually, well, 136 square feet. Yeah, 136. No, it's-
All right.
It's about 20.
Oh, I don't know what, someone had told us it was moving over and it was gonna be attached to the house. So
No,
it's not, it's going in the same.
same.
This is the plan they use for the stream.
But if it's gonna be bigger, is it gonna be that culvert that runs right on the side of it?
It's gonna go close to the garage.
If you look right behind you, the drawing. on the-
Oh,
Drawing right here.
Oh,
So this is the
okay.
existing stuff right here. It's gonna come forward.
Okay.
2.5. There's a couple, see how it goes at an angle?
Yeah.
We're gonna take that out of there. That's not gonna be going in.
So based on your drawing, your setback from the side property line would be. And that's all.
Going there.
Yep. Yep, I'm good.
And nothing's gonna be done with the water that's in front of it.
Well,
The culvert that goes through there, you can see.
yeah, some of it's just rip wrap, and all that. That's all.
Not that-
The finished floor elevation, is that the one is either?
Oh.
15 is not.
When we
It's
start
here.
Can we put the things back
That makes
that
sense.
they took
Flood
out
elevation is
at the front?
214.
We haven't surveyed, and they pulled the pin out.
They pulled. There was a little orange marker when we had
They
it surveyed
buried it, and they, and the.
a year and a half ago, so.
And they did work.
I
on
think,
that.
I think they buried it, so it's just,
When we had a survey, he dug it up and found it, then he put a flag on it, when they come and take care of the lawn over there, they
Very
pull
good.
they pull the pin out. I mean, the flag,
it's,
So- I mean, I'd like to just have it.
I'm sure it's there and do it.
Yeah, yeah, but if you're surveying. then you can
Yeah, but take
mark
care.
it
Yeah.
And have it marked, so it's.
No big deal. I think it's a very simple project. You know, it's one of these things we probably for 136 square feet bigger. It makes me wonder why we're even here.
Well,
You know,
because.
we're making it, we're coming further off the lake. We're not touching the stream.
My guess is because, as it said in the notice that they sent us, it's a non-conforming lot. Because at the time when they did it, when we came to that hearing, and the discussion was, well, it's more conforming than it had been, so they approved it. So,
And I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, like, how many times can you be non-conforming on the same exact property? Because this is, they're doing it again, so it's gonna have a bigger garage. and stuff, and it's still not conforming, so it's not making it smaller. And
Right.
it's supposed to be, that you're not increasing the hard surface space, right?
Impervious covers
Yeah.
calculations were in there, and they're maintaining impervious cover. Based on the calculations, they're removing a small portion of paved area or gravel area, which is essentially.
And that's what they did the last time too,
So,
and then they made it big.
that meets the standards, so, but again, our standard, our job is to make sure that a non-conforming structure doesn't increase the non-conformity. So they're allowed to expand it, but we can't let them expand towards the water. We can't let them expand towards the property line. That would make it lower.
So
they
it's
can't-
standing
They
through
can't move it, they can move it away from the water, they can move it away from the property line. They can't get closer to the property line or closer to the water. If it's a non-conforming structure and the height is capped at the existing building height. They can't go higher than that, or they have to meet the shoreline zoning standards. So they can only go so tall. So those are kind of our limitations and our kind of guide. So I know it can seem weird, but
Yeah.
really they could come back every year if they wanted to do something new. Because it's a non-conforming structure, every time they did something, they would have to come back to the board. Which is weird, but that's the reality.
Anyone else in the audience on this project? What about, who we have on? Are they concerned about this project at all?
There's two people, but no one's raising their hand
Okay, so we're all set there?
at this time.
Okay, so at this juncture, it's, what's the board's wish in terms of going forward with this project?
I don't think we can approve it until we have verification that the elevation's been done, because there could be other changes, so I'd be worried about. If they increase it and they have to move it a foot, then they have to change the height of the building, and that changes everything.
So they need to go have that survey,
So,
come up
I
with
think-
those elevations, bring it back to us.
Right.
So there's no action.
In this instance, I would recommend that if you've said it's complete, you have enough information, but now there's some question about what's provided, I would table it to a date and time specific, the next meeting. So that would be May 8th.
So with the action we take, we take.
Yep, if you feel like you've collected all the information that you can this evening, then that would be a suggested action.
So, sure.
I'm sorry, continue it, not table it, continue it to May 8th.
The motion be to continue. To that meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that case number 24-009, 206 Memorial Drive, conditional use permit request to remove and replace a garage, including a 30% expansion of a non-conforming structure in the shoreline zone. Stephen Stacy Schuman, map 42, lot 003, be continued until the elevation can be determined, and if modifications need to be done with the plans, coming back with that information.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor? Oh. Thank you, Bill. Yep. See you next meeting. Which is 2 weeks, right?
May 8th. I'm not sure if it's exactly 2 weeks.
May
And Bill, let's talk to Mark tomorrow. Maybe you and I can put our heads together with Mark and figure some of this out.
This building.
At some point in time, the floodplain was talked about. Existing building is there. 2 existing buildings. are there. Town still got flood insurance.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, moving down to number 4, which is 24011. 14 Energy Out Pond Road. How many folks are here for that? Yes. And as I understand it, the applicants requested this meeting to review the plan.
Yes.
And look for feedback.
Right, so
So no
this-
problem with that.
that's correct. We haven't submitted or even prepared the formal application yet. What we're doing is a sketch plan review. So we've done a preliminary design, and what we want to do is present that to the board, get you familiar with the project and what we're trying to accomplish here. We'd like to collect feedback, maybe a little bit of guidance, so we can go ahead, finish up, wrap up our design, prepare our final application, and get that submitted.
Bring it back, right?
Bring it back more formal.
So procedurally, we will not be taking a vote on completion of the application. we will be taking input from the audience, from the public. Which is different what we just did. So, and the reason we're doing that is because we've been asked to hear the presentation. We want the public to have input in it. Is that clear?
This is the time to identify opportunities and issues. So however that you can best do that, I do suggest that we notice the public and you hear what they have to say.
So go ahead.
So,
Introduce yourself.
great. So my name is Jeff Reed. I work with CV Mahar Engineers. And I'm the civil design engineer for the project. With me here tonight too, I have Ralph Lima, who is with the developer of Encore Removal.
This gentleman.
Yep. And I'll give him a chance to come up and introduce himself here, so that he can kind of let you know what Encore is all about. And then I'll come in and kind of explain the project.
Sure.
I'm not sure you need to stand up, but
Well, hide it back here. Yeah, good evening. Thank you for putting us in your agenda tonight. My name is Ralph Lima. I'm with Encore Redevelopment. We are a primarily solar developer based in Burlington, Vermont. We were founded 17 years ago. I've been with the company for 2 years myself, and I've been in the business for about 10 years. And we, at this point, I think we've developed about 90 solar arrays around mostly northern New England. We operate a little bit more outside of the Northeast these days, but our focus has been Vermont and then Vermont and Maine, and we're also starting to do some projects in New Hampshire. They're all very similar. They go through the same development process, the same permitting process. We do our very best to make sure that they quietly fit into communities and that they deliver benefits to, in many cases, schools, towns, and other kinds of municipal organizations. In Maine, we've been very active for about the past 5 years, and we are either doing or have completed projects, most of which I've been directly involved in, let's see if I can remember them all, Wilton, Oakland, Anson, Cape Elizabeth, Brooks, what else here? And one more that I'm forgetting. As Jeff will review with you, there's a pretty extensive set of requirements that solar projects have to go through, both at the state and the town level. And they run the gamut from visual impact to environmental issues to natural resources to whether or not the power lines in that location are capable of taking on what's called distributed generation. So I'll be very happy, going forward to answer any questions you might have, either tonight or in the future. Don't hesitate to contact me. I'm in frequent contact with Jeff as well. We talk at least once a week. We've been working on a bunch of projects. Jeff, can you think of any other points that I should cover as far as Encore and the projects we do?
no, I mean, I think, a lot of them are in various stages of development right now. We just finished wrapping up project right now. You guys been doing this a while.
I have a couple of other points I want to mention. Cape Elizabeth, by the way, is on the municipal landfill, and a lot of projects we've done have been on landfills. Really good location for solar. What I wanted to mention to you is that the proposal that we're sharing with you this evening, it's just for a 2 megawatt solar array, and there's a problem with 2 megawatt arrays that are in this stage of development, which is that if they're not up and running and the COD, a commercial operation, by the end of this year, December 31st, they won't be eligible for the state's net energy billing incentive program. And as a result, what we've done is we've actually applied the CMP to reduce the size of this array to half of what's in the proposal. So we're going to have to go down from basically 2 megawatts to a megawatt or just under to make sure that when December 31st comes around, and we for sure don't have it up and running because that's just not part of our schedule at this point, that the array will still be eligible to participate in the net energy billing program. So sort of keep that as a grain of salt as we talk about the project, because it's going to be half the size of what was initially proposed. And then I guess
That's a good segue to right here, because the drawing that I have here, I mean, it's brand new today. Is different than the one you have in your packets. You'll notice the one you have in your packets looks like this. Okay, this is the one we included. It was a 2 megawatt design. What there are some things that haven't changed with this newer project, and there are some things that have. What's changed basically is the reduction in size. You can see there's a larger area up here that we're not going to be constructing. And the array overall was going to be 0.995 megawatt. This measured AC. We're going from the lease area is staying the same. Around the outside, we're still at 13.2 acres. That's going to include portions of the access road. The lot sizes are all the same. The zoning is all the same. All the requirements haven't really changed with the reduction in size. What we are doing is we're with a reduced solar footprint, the clearing is being reduced from almost 9 acres down to 6.2 acres. Do this for given. The array footprint itself has gone from 8.74 acres down to 4.9. The area around the outside that we're showing for clearing has changed. And I can go into some details on that, what these different colors represent. The site access is essentially the same too. As we'd outlined in our summary and Dawn had mentioned in her notes, we've had the project area very big wet. And you can see these dark green areas are all wet. Chris Colby, who did the work for us, also identified 2 potential vernal pool areas. He did go back through those. They are, I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the difference of vernal pool standards between Army Corps and DEP. So from a DEP standpoint, because they were essentially man-made, they were deemed to be non-significant, which is great because we don't have to deal with the 250-foot critical habitat setback. As far as Army Corps is concerned, as long as we don't enter the vernal pool footprint, we're fine. They're both outside the project area, so the setback is the only issue that we would have had to deal with goes away. And we have filed those with the state already, so those are all registered. The other wetland challenge that we have coming into the site deal with the access, because you can see we're coming in from the water behind the water district building, using their existing curb cuts and access. We're going to come out the back of the property, and we've found a route through that, trying to minimize wetland impacts for obvious reasons. We want to be able to reduce our impact to the environment. We also want to be able to reduce our permitting effort. In between, again, the DEP and the Army Corps requirements, we're trying to target less than 5,000 square feet of impact. Right now, we're about 4,600. That number hasn't changed from the original packet because most of that fell to the access road coming in. Some of the other colors that you see here, as far as the clearing, the light green within the fenced area represents areas that are going to be cleared, stumped, rubbed. And that is primarily within the array footprint and the fenced area, and then I believe 10 feet outside the fence. Anything out beyond that is going to be cleared only. Not going to be grubbed, it's not going to be stumped. And the intent there is to be able to preserve enough of the natural ground surface as we can. We want to minimize our footprint. We need to clear that area for shading and solar array production. But again, we want to kind of minimize the impact on the area there. So those areas will be treated a little bit differently. The array footprint and the clearing right now have no wetland impacts. And you can see even here, we've got a little island of wetland that was identified. We're leaving that. So we're really trying to be conscious to keep those numbers down. I think what we have here, is, again, on first flush, a system that it's no allowable use. I think it meets all of the design requirements, all the ordinance and zoning requirements. And I think it's a pretty good plan moving forward, but again, we did want to get feedback from the board on any particular items of either sensitivity in the town or special concerns that you might have, so that we could address them before we finalize our design. But pretty high level, quick summary, but
Well, you're complete.
Yeah.
We'll start with Andy, you have any comment?
No, okay, technically, I probably still will understand my role here. I'm the liaison with the town council. So I need to be very careful not to make comments that would think that I had board authority or anything. I may say something now and then, you know, concerning the law and the rules and stuff. Well, I comment directly on a case is pretty much as you might want me to. Really, I shouldn't.
yeah,
Yeah, I just go over your, I haven't looked over your new one, but, you know, our buffer requirement here in Winthrop, you know, that we're maintaining a 50-foot vegetated buffer, we're gonna plant evergreens, so just making sure that the soils in the wetland area will support that type of vegetation. You were on the fringe, so it looks like you probably would, so I wasn't overly worried about it.
right.
But I just wanted to note that, just make sure you were aware of that requirement.
So I am, and just so that I can make sure that I understand. Now, and we've shown that we identified that 50 foot,
Yep.
and we've got a section here. That distance between this blue and the property line is 50 feet.
Yep.
It's wooded right now.
Right.
We're not planning to cut in that area. My understanding is that if the buffer is sufficiently thick and provides adequate visual screening, additional planning and landscaping might not be necessary.
That's the hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's our hope too.
Yeah, it's a little bit, I mean, it's a little bit subjective when we talk about this in the plan.
Sure.
You know, the ideas are also, what are the visual impacts, you know, to neighbors, things like that. The view shed analysis is really important to us to know who, you know, given if we want to see the view shed analysis, and we weren't as good at writing it in the ordinance to detail everything out. But what we've seen in the plans that we've been happy with has been the view shed analysis with and without the buffer zone. So who could see this if there wasn't a buffer zone? Who could see this with? And if there's any kind of slope or topography, show all four corners, just because it helps us with the visualization and show us an up close version, like a view shed analysis, like you're showing here,
Mhm.
but also show one like from the whole town. So we want to see a much larger scale. You know, we know that, you know, you can see a lot, just zoomed out so that you can actually see who would be able to see that. So like the top of Mount Pisgah could probably see a lot of these things.
Sure.
And that's fine, but
Right.
is that the only place you're gonna see it from, or is there a whole hillside or something else? Just to give us a better understanding for the visual impacts, even if you have a vegetated buffer, if you're in the bottom of a valley and everybody can see it,
Sure.
that's something to kind of be aware of.
So, the view shed, the analysis that we've done before have been fairly straightforward. We've been able to combine, topography with tree height.
Yep.
From different select points that have been identified as potentially sensitive areas. And we put together a pretty basic sightline analysis. So for example, if this were down in a hole and we're looking down in, then yeah, you can see right down and you can see the array.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of on a little bit of a kind of a shoulder section. The low areas, as you would expect, are lower, wet.
Yep.
And those are kind of the drainage areas. But from another section, for example, from here, you know, it slopes up, but it's not tremendously deep. I think there might be a 10-foot difference from one end to the other, and maybe another 10-foot difference down here. So between that and the existing tree heights that are there, you probably won't have a direct sight line to the array. If these were all deciduous trees and they lived out in the summer, maybe you can see through them to see it, but.
Yeah. Well, let me take a step back and say, use the bare earth rendering.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've just got the flat
Yep.
earth, so there's no trees. Do it without, what does just the topography show us?
Right.
And obviously, everybody around it would be able to see it
Sure.
without any kind of a
Right.
buffer. And then put in a 25-foot buffer at the edge of kind of where you ended clear, just a pretend wall, you could say, just,
125 or 50 foot?
20, well, no, height.
Okay,
Elevation,
Gotcha.
so your
Okay.
elevation, because we're not allowing you, even though the trees may be taller, we're not allowing you to prune below 25 feet.
understood.
So when you go and prune, you may cut it 25 feet. But then
Right.
hopefully they will grow taller than that.
Right.
So that's where if you use a wall, of the wall feature, when you're doing a view shed analysis and
Mhm.
just do a 25-foot wall, that would show what the vegetation, what the vegetated buffer zone would hide, rather than trying to place actual trees or do actual analysis.
Okay,
Just the idea was to really give us an understanding of who's going to see it from what location. It doesn't mean that nobody can see it. That's not, I think, the intent.
sure.
It was more just trying to understand, is everybody in town going to see
What's the
this?
potential
Or
of
is
that?
there very few people that would be able to see it? And really talking to the neighbors and the people living near close by. I think that was why it was added. We had a lot of townspeople coming to us saying, hey, I'm okay with solar. I just don't want to see it. So we said, okay, well, let's try to present something that, will protect them as well as, the solar function.
Okay, so, and that's all great and very helpful. One thing, and I'm not sure if I should ask the board tonight or maybe connect with Dawn later in terms of, you'd mentioned, obviously the abutters and then other areas around. Are there specific, because that.
I think it should be the whole town.
It
Should be
basically just
everywhere.
zooming out and just looking at the view shed analysis, like there's a tool in art that'll actually cast it out and would show you whether you're, anywhere in town, who would be able to see that.
Okay.
So, and again, that one, it's not hard to say, oh, well, that house is in, that's not the intent. The intent was kind of like, can 2/3 of the town see this, or
Okay,
is it something that's fairly well protected? Because we found that the zoomed in one was okay. But then there was maybe you're right below like a big hill or area,
Sure.
and that whole hill is looking down here. And it's like, oh, well, we didn't know that.
Okay.
So just to help us with perspective
understood.
is kind of the plan.
No, and that's helpful. Thank you for that explanation.
And then I just had, I went over the view shed. And then just to let you know, like the fiscal security, when you come to the board and say, okay, well, the state says that, we need $18,000 for removal, we're probably gonna say, no, that's not realistic. So get some realistic estimates from, a contractor that says, if this site had to be mitigated, what's it really gonna cost?
For the decommissioning plan.
Yeah, so we found that they've been well under what the reality is. So, and we would like to make sure that, because these are done with LLCs and things like that, and at some point, these aren't gonna be very valuable, 30 years from now, those panels probably won't be very functional. And if the town got to that spot, they would have the financial means to take care of it without having to burden the town itself.
Sure.
So,
I guess it will in a septic home. The last solar contract I saw, and I believe most of them have. An expiration clause, so after 20 years, it's part of the contract with the landowner. That they have to remove everything.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm not sure why we're worried about 30.
it's, well, 2 years from now, they could put this up, and 2 years from now, the LLC says we're defunct. And now that solar array is sitting there.
But the,
And so what they're required for by our ordinance, what they're required, you just so you're aware what our ordinance says, is, and the state says the same thing, they're gonna give financial security to either the town or the state.
Yes.
And that's going to be mitigation if that company is no longer valid. They can absolutely do their own mitigation. There's nothing to say that you could have all the money back. If you shut the solar array down and you do all the ground mitigation, that's entirely your money to have back. That's the only reason that the financial security is there is to protect the town if that company goes bankrupt or shuts down, or that LLC goes defunct. And now the town is left with a solar array that they can't do anything with. You know,
So ultimately, and you're absolutely right.
that's the only financial security that I was talking about is right, it's just,
Right.
it's protecting the town in case that LLC leaves.
Right.
But there's nothing to stop it. If those panels are outdated and 20 years go by and you want to take the array down, you take it down and you get your money back.
So in this case here, and like I was gonna say, you're absolutely right, it would be named. Is usually taken care of in bond.
Yeah.
And in this case here, you want the town name on the bond.
See, so yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's what most do. But,
We have some sample language, but you probably have some as well.
yeah, so, yeah.
Rick,
Covered my new shed, we're good.
Not at this time.
Don?
No, I'm all set.
There's, relative to the size, and I understand why you're doing it. It's the, you know, the available funding.
Right.
In case. Are there any plans to increase it or double it in the future?
No.
And that's not feasible because the design will take from.
It wouldn't even qualify for the state incentives if it went over 1 megawatt. So there's no,
Okay.
we have no interest.
So financially, there's no return,
No,
with that situation, right?
It just doesn't make sense.
So there's, these arrays are typically 3 phases.
oh yeah, it'll need a 3-phase power. Yeah. Or a 3-phase connection.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously your inverter might not be half the size, but would have been. Correct. And obviously that limits your financial and physically eliminates the ability.
All those, by the way, are gonna be, all the equipment will be inside the fenced area. Electrical, right? And what we're proposing or thinking about at this point. I mean, typically they come off the road and you've got a series of poles for the interconnection. And those are all overhead. And it typically runs into the array, as overhead line and then comes in underground within the fenced area. We may be, to reduce our impact through here, we may be, we'll have our series of poles out in here at the water district. And then running overhead kind of up to the wetland. Because the poles end up with a wider cut with a, you need another 10 feet. And we want to minimize that area. We may be going underground before we come here and running it in as an underground line. Again, those details are still being worked out, but
As the array, obviously you're grounding a lot of steel material in there. Is there any impact on weather in terms of lightning or where you're establishing a new installation with new grounding?
Yeah.
So the first
Yeah.
of the trees.
Yep.
What impact does that have on whatever?
I mean, I haven't heard on that impacting anything. Usually there are safeguards in place and other grounding systems that. I don't think there's an increase in. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. Is there an increase in lightning and lightning strikes?
Correct.
Okay.
That's weather impact.
Okay. I have not seen or heard of that with any of the arrays. I've been doing this since the solar stuff since about 2017. Well,
Yeah, I've never heard.
okay. So I don't think so.
Any history on the toxicity of the panels? Impact on the ground?
Yeah, that's not true.
I'm just
No,
asking.
and there was a study that came out in New York, 2 years ago. That, that was talking about potentially coatings on the panels and leaching off the panels in the ring. And it was kind of one of those things, throw some mud and get it to stick, right? It was never substantiated, it was never backed up. But it's something that, I don't mean to.
Well, I understand, but we have
It's something that always comes up.
we have this thing called sludge off in municipal plants that are now
Oh, yeah.
forever
PFAS is
chemicals,
a huge deal.
which we thought we were all safe putting.
Yeah.
on. That's why I'm-
Yeah.
What's the next toxicity on our land, based on experience over 20 years.
Yeah, we're not anticipating anything, and there's nothing in the science, the manufacturer's data that indicate that there's anything that's gonna come off the panels into the array. I mean, even the transformers, it's not like the old transformers where there's all the PCBs and that sort of thing. Everything now is pretty well dialed into be neutral and inert. I mean, even in terms of like one of the things that we usually run through and try to coordinate with the fire department, right? Is what if this thing catches on fire, you know, how's it treated and everything else? And I mean, generally the answer is they're all basically inert materials. It's steel and silica and copper, you know, and it's insured. You know, the answer is let it burn and clean it up when it's done. I mean, it's not an area that you want to go into, fight fires and, but I know there is a requirement as well with the town to coordinate the fire department and fire protection and develop plan and that sort of thing, and we fully intend to do that. In general, that's the response there. We just yeah, I do have some other projects where we are actually putting solar arrays in areas where PFAS was spread. So where the sludge was spread.
Yeah.
I have other sites where those areas now they've been permitted for solar arrays. So there's a whole coordination piece between testing the existing ground to find out what's really there versus what.
So you got a base
Exactly.
baseline.
Exactly. But it's pretty much the same thing there. They're not anticipating any changes from the solar system.
Yeah, and just to add a couple of things to what Jeff said. Some people ask about, you know, is there oil in the transformer? Because we use a large slab mounted transformer to step up the voltage to the power on the grid. And you know, once upon a time, there was oil with PCBs, I mean, all sorts of toxic stuff in transformers. The transformer has a containment trough around it in case it for some reason leaks. But the oil we use is actually vegetable oil. So you could literally eat it, not that you'd want to. But that's the only other substance that might leak if there was like a freak accident and the transformer was somehow breached. But it's basically like corn oil or
Yeah.
Just one quick question with the redesign. I wanted to make sure you guys aren't doing like battery storage.
No.
This is, okay, no, we had one plan like that, so and that's a whole nother like chemical storage thing. So if you're not, I'm not saying you don't have like a little battery or something for your electronic. I'm just saying you're not planning on storing this power and sending it out at different times.
No, and even through yeah, no.
I wanted to make sure because I know it wasn't in your original design, but I didn't know if going smaller there was some change.
It's not in this one either. And we're not proposing any site lighting. We're not proposing any of that. Yes. So.
Go ahead and handle it. Sure. What's the height of these panels going to be?
So these are, I'm not sure that's been finalized yet. These are typically anywhere 10 to 12 feet at the highest point. This is going to be a ground mount, fixed tilt system. So it's not going to be an adjustable. So at the highest point of the panel, typically 10 to 12 feet.
How are you going to store it?
So those are either going to go on, so it's usually either a helical ground screw or a driven pile section. And again, that gets through the solar designer, usually selects all that. And a lot of that information will be included with the actual submission.
And that's all part of your rule. All the structures are taken out.
Everything's got to come out. Yeah.
Okay, there are no more questions from the board. I'll open up the public. Please state the name if you have a question.
Oh, sure. Who actually owns the land that those are on?
So this land is the Augusta Utility District.
And I noticed some of the property names, but the property owners are incorrect on their chart.
Are you one of them?
No, this is Martin. The property owners are down here. These property owners are way down there.
Okay.
That's an easy detail. The town didn't get it wrong, so we're okay.
Okay. Well, so you guys, right? Don, maybe we could work with you. I mean, we pulled all this info from tax records, so.
From Vision?
Pardon?
From Vision, from online Vision?
So,
Okay, yeah, give me a call because I know they were updating that, but maybe it's not completed yet.
Another question.
Yeah.
You kind of chuckled and, you know, thought it was maybe a little bit comical about chemicals and such, but they're a property owner next to their proposed project. And we have dug shallow wells. What's it gonna do to our water system?
No impact at all.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. The only materials that come into contact with the environment are the steel posts, aluminum frames.
Nothing else disturbing any of the soils
No,
and such.
No,
nearby.
the only disturbance will occur in this lighter green area, okay? And there's no grading proposed. All the slopes are suitable for the array. They're not too steep. We don't have to flatten them out to get optimal exposure. So this area here is going to get cut and then pull stumps and then basically smooth out the topsoil.
So all of your earthwork is not going to affect by any means any of the wetlands. No runoff.
Yeah. So as part of this, right, we have to do a stormwater analysis, so the pre and post evaluations will model it. And we're required to make sure that we're not increasing peak flow discharge onto the buying properties. We haven't got to that point with this yet, still a preliminary plan. That'll be part of our final design and our final application. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna make sure that that we're not increasing runoff. The grading as far as impacting wetlands in the array footprint, you're absolutely right. We are going to be impacting some wetlands coming here through the access because
Then your buffer area and fencing is important with what he was discussing as far as any buffers.
Mhm.
So if you have a wetland that you're going to have to put some kind of buffer in. How do you do that?
I'm not sure what you're asking. So we're gonna have impacts, right? As we cross the wetlands and those are permittable.
Whereas the other sides.
As far as they're on the outsides, we're not impacting the wetlands on the outside, we're staying out. These lines and some of these funny lines here, normally we would be clearing this for shading as well, but because of the wetland, we're holding 5 feet off of it to make sure that we don't cut, we don't disturb it. Same thing with this little island right here. We're leaving that.
The lighter blue area is
Is cut but not stumped.
proposed fence with.
The fence is 10 feet inside the green area. It's this line here. So we will be clearing a little bit outside the fence line for shading. But the fence by code needs to be at least 10 feet off the array. We usually use 15, just so that we can have access around if we need to. But it doesn't make sense to fence in the whole clear area because we want a lot more fence and it gets more expensive. So the only code requirement is to contain the electrical components to the array.
and no herbicide.
Correct. Yeah.
But you said no herbicide.
No, yeah, you're not allowed. State code requires them to put in, what they call meadow seed.
Mhm.
And they can mow it twice a year, and that's it. So the idea being that meadow is ideal for breaking up rain, getting good infiltration, not impacting, your groundwater system, things like that. So that's really the ideal behind it. That's why they say there's essentially no impact. And in fact, is you'll probably get more groundwater infiltration than less because trees, during the summertime in particular, trees will evapotranspirate off about 5 times more than a meadow would. And so, those are state rules. That's not anything the town does, but just so you're aware, they have to follow the state rules as well as, our sub guidance here.
Right. And just sorry.
And I'm gonna ask the board, is the 50-foot setback requirement from the structure of the solar panels or from the fence?
It's a 50-foot vegetated buffer, however they want to do it. It's for visual impacts more than that.
I know all that, but does it start at the at the panels, or if they choose to put the fence 15 feet away, does it start at the fence?
It would start wherever you wanted to measure it. So in this case, they're gonna have a fence and then they're gonna clear an additional area and then they're gonna have a 50-foot vegetated buffer. That's perfectly allowable under our ordinance.
But technically, if they wanted to measure 50 feet from the panel and call that the buffer, irrespective of where the fence was, that would be legal.
No, because if the panel, they have to have a setback, they have to have a setback from the panel.
Right.
And then, so then they can put the fence. So you could stop and have the buffer start right at the fence. But you couldn't have it start at, because it has to be a vegetated buffer that has trees. Right,
Yeah,
so,
I get all that part.
okay,
I'm just asking you where the buffer starts, from the structure and the panels, irrespective of the fence, or from the fence.
it's,
Probably, I don't know.
well, it's separate from both. It has to be a 50-foot vegetated buffer, which means there's a 50-foot area surrounding the entire property. Regardless of where it is, they could clear that whole northern portion that they're not adding panels to now. And the vegetated buffer could be at the very top, and that's allowable. So it doesn't start.
That's not a direct answer to my question. So
I
You
think
have-
I know what he's saying.
you have a solar panel here, and you got a fence. Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. You got a fence here.
Yes.
Okay, now, does the legally mandated 50-foot buffer?
Right.
Start from where the solar panel is, or where the contractor chooses to put the fence?
It has to start on this side of the fence
So it starts from the fence.
or further out from the fence. It could start way over
So-
here. The panels are irregardless. They have to put a fence around the property.
I know.
And the vegetated buffer has to start on this side of the fence.
So the
And it still
50-foot
has to
buffer
be
starts,
It still has to be 50 feet, no matter where you move it.
I get all that,
Okay,
okay? So, but the 50-foot buffer starts not from the panels,
right.
but from the fence.
It has to, that's as close as it could be, yes.
But it doesn't make any sense to even do that, because we need to be able to move a vehicle around in case the fence is broken.
Right.
Yeah, I
can make it.
I get that.
So what we're doing in this project is we're not starting it either, okay? We're measuring 50 feet off property line. And saying we're gonna have a band of 50 feet worth of, that's a no cut buffer. Yeah, so we're gonna protect all those trees. We can clear up to that 50 feet, but we can't go over it. And in a lot of areas, we have a lot more than that, right? But at its closest point, we're not gonna be any closer than 50 feet to the property line. So we're starting our measurement from the property line to protect our neighbors.
Going in the opposite direction.
Yes.
Hey, you were done with your questions. You have questions?
Yeah, I have a couple, so I appreciate what you've said so far. Regarding where you set your step-up transformers and your other switch gear, that's not gonna be in a meadow, right? It's gonna have to be on concrete pads.
Yes.
Is there gonna be a rock, similar to a utility substation? Is there gonna be a crush rock area with a pad inside it, or is it gonna be metal right up to the pad?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't even know the answer to that question because it's just typically, I mean, these transformers are relatively small.
Right, like a pad mount.
Yeah, it's a pad mounted transformer and, yeah, you know, there may be some crushed stone footing that spills out around it, but it'll look like the meadow comes right up to the edge.
Yes, and so it's not gonna be like a substation, like.
No, oh, no,
No.
It's about, you know, what is it, about maybe 8 feet long and 5 feet wide.
Are you gonna have like a control house and protected switch gear and stuff like that inside it?
Yeah, on the drawing, right next to the transformer in the row of the equipment cabinets, you know, where the switch gear, for example, is.
Well, it's not a room, the switch gears.
No. They're weatherproof containers,
Right.
and they're usually
Cabinet.
post mounted.
Mhm.
But there's no other structure.
Alright.
On the property.
You mentioned project lighting, did you mean to say there's gonna be absolutely no lighting? That's on all night or
Exactly.
in this area,
Exactly.
right? And,
Not in the array and not on the access.
okay, so do you have a sense for where you're gonna start your three-phase entrance? Because current three-phase on Carlton Pond Road goes approximately halfway up, this cleared property stops somewhere right in here. You're gonna extend that up the road, have you even gotten that far?
Well-
You're gonna come right straight across between the building and the settling pond.
So what we're showing here is connecting and this line did not come from me, it came from the electrical designers.
Okay.
And I'm assuming they've already worked that out, so they're gonna connect to the pole in the street over here.
Yep.
And they're gonna come up, they'll have their series of poles here.
So, yeah, so these are all your reclosers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, and then we'll run it in and we'll have a drop. Probably right here. And again, we're working out that above ground, underground detail, but yeah, that's where we're planning on connecting like a series.
Are you at the point now where you're considering what kind of protection? This might be a utility requirement, I'm not sure. But do you know, or can you comment on what kind of protection you will have in place, to protect the rest of the customers on this entire circuit all the way back to Manchester? From any faults or anything inside this facility,
You're asking the wrong guy for
like a
that.
recloser?
Well, yeah, there will be reclosers at both ends, both on the utility side and the customer side.
The only recloser currently on this circuit is all the way back to Manchester, I think.
Before this would be installed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this recloser is looking at the facility and not out.
I think there's one of each end that looks in, I think they look in both directions.
Yep.
You have to protect the array from the grid and the grid from the array.
Yep. All right. Will there be any studies done to determine, fault clearing speed? Such that, any fault on any of this equipment from Carlton Pond Road into the facility will essentially, go dark without any of the customers up and down this road feeling a thing? Or is it
I'm
gonna be?
not the person to ask about this,
Okay.
but I can share the single line diagram.
I'd like to see
You
that.
want to actually see the specs.
I'd like to see that.
But
Yeah.
it goes through a pretty exhaustive, system impact study with CMP.
Yeah.
So let me understand your concern. Is it, obviously you want to maintain your electricity to your home.
The entire circuit, yeah.
Yeah.
3,000 something.
Either way. So your concern is that there's protection with this system
Right,
that doesn't, let's say I have a fault on that system.
Yep.
Backs back onto the three-phase lines. You don't lose power because of an issue, on your array.
yeah, so we're used to having large branches come down across the three phase in this area. So we blink, 3 times and something blows and it comes back on. So I'm not saying I want steady 60 cycles, no matter what's going on right there. But I'm just saying that there's sufficient protection in place. You're not relying on utility protection.
No, and the thing is, as soon as the grid goes down, you want that to go offline.
Absolutely.
And it goes
No
offline
backfeed.
instantaneously. You don't want to energize the local grid.
Your inverter is built to, to not backfeed, right? Right.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, I just want to make sure I get this gentleman's name and address for the record. I'd like to get this gentleman's name and address for the record. I apologize. I don't want to.
Mark Stevens.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if Ben, I was gonna shut up pretty soon, so if Ben had any questions.
That wasn't my point.
So what you'd like to see in that proposal is exactly what that plan is.
I think
Provide
it's
that
all
protection.
standard.
It is, and it's not Ralph, it's not myself, but I mean, it's probably Lily's group, right?
Yeah,
There's a group of electrical designers that go through and they coordinate all this stuff and design all this stuff in conjunction with the utility. To make sure that it meets all applicable code standards and keeps everybody safe.
And your whole point is protect that three-phase line all the way to Manchester where the recloses are, so you don't have exposure, basically.
Yeah, I'm not asking the project to put protection in place that's looking out on the line, but just in consideration of the rest of the circuit. I think that's all standard. I don't know if the town digs that deeply into things, but it is a consideration for the neighbors.
Yeah, state and federal do it. And I think the basic thing that he's trying to get at here is that this project is not gonna impact any of the other customers out in the area.
Correct.
In a negative way.
If there's a
Right,
fault.
right. And all I can say is that it's designed and built into the system. But yeah, I'm a civil guy and not
You have that answer, you just need to go get it. Yeah. Are you all set?
Almost. So activity, maintenance activity is what typically happens with this facility? Is it a kind of a set and forget it? Is it remotely telemetered?
It's remotely monitored.
Do you have a control room somewhere or some folks? Who do you call if something goes wrong?
Well, I mean, we have an O&M, operations and maintenance department that continually monitor all the arrays that we own. And that actually raises another question, which is, somebody could have asked, are you going to develop this array and then sell it to an investor somewhere who knows where? Or are you going to keep it and operate it yourselves? And we're going to do the latter. So, we're on board to own and operate that array for the next 35 years, or however long it operates.
Okay.
And there are people who are, constantly monitoring the operation.
I think typically it's a couple of maintenance visits a year.
Yeah, max. It's very, very.
After the construction's done.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of activity during construction. I get that. So you're assuming it's you or your company. You're in the business to own and operate the building itself.
Absolutely.
That does it. I don't know if Ben can repeat, but he says he doesn't have any questions at this time.
I'm looking at the message, yeah.
We're neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to read his letter, and there was, from the letter, my takeaway from that is he just, he's not really opposed to the project or anything. He just wants to make sure that all the applicable laws, code, and ordinances are followed and applied through the design to the permitting. I think he misunderstood, and that this was maybe a formal application or some sort of approval tonight. And there was concern that he hadn't had a chance to review and comment, but he will have that opportunity. Like I said, this is just a preliminary review, and we'll be planning either to try to submit this if we can get it turned around for the submittal date next week. Next Wednesday we will. If not, it'll be 2 weeks following. So we are planning on getting this submitted within the next.
So is Ben on?
23 weeks.
Online.
Ben is on, so we've got his question.
I can read his comment. He said, and it's the same that you're just getting no questions from me at this time. Once we have the full plan, we will have my firm's engineer review and supply comments.
Sir, are you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Go ahead.
Is that gonna affect any of the wild animals in the area?
So,
You can hear it or anything like that?
What?
You get
No,
fined?
well, no, in fact, one of the things that we do and with the state, I mean, obviously it's gonna be a change in habitat, right? Because we're cutting down a bunch of trees. The fence that we put up around this, originally, they used to do a chain link fence. Okay, and that in recent years has switched over. Now they use, it's called a fixed knot agricultural fence. So it's basically a wire fence that still meets the electrical codes. It still meets the same 7 feet high. Typically wood posts, but it's got a larger opening. There's usually a little gap underneath for habitat for smaller animals to get through. I mean, deer aren't gonna fit through or crawl under. They can probably jump over if they wanted, but there's passage for that, and that's why. As the board member here mentioned before, Mr. Stewart, the meadow mix that we use, which coincidentally is the same meadow mix that we use for stormwater buffers. So it all applies. That also creates a different type of habitat, but it's not like this is all crushed stone or dirt or barren land. It's meadow. A lot of times it mixes in with like a flower mix, so it encourages bee activity, pollinators, that sort of thing. So there's an impact, but it's kind of more of a shift and a change. And we do everything that we can to maintain habitat areas, and we do everything we can to promote others. We have gone through and part of our application requirement, we've written the letters and done kind of a desktop study that we send to IFNW and these other groups for historic preservation and, see if there are any sensitive, rare threatened native species, that sort of thing. We do an impact study, which is another wildlife, and land study. And those are all kind of in process right now. They're in review with the state agencies, and we should be doing those back soon. But based on all the online references, we're not expecting anything here in terms of endangered or threatened species.
You all set?
Mm.
You're done?
If I could just get your name and address.
Anita Legassi. 610.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Front row, we're all set? Okay. What about online? Anybody else online?
No one else, just Ben.
So we can do, everyone's input. I would say this completes what you were asking for.
Definitely.
To the best of our ability.
Great, no, it's great feedback. I really appreciate it. Like I said, as we kind of go in and finalize this plan, we'll be able to take these things into consideration and incorporate into the final design and application package.
Can I just make an observation? There were some questions that came up that they weren't quite prepared to answer, or that we're not the person. Are there experts that you feel they should bring with them? Any of their people to answer questions at the meeting? Because that could
Well,
delay the process if they don't have them.
I was just electrical, it sounds like there's a need for some kind of input there concern as to those questions. I didn't hear of any other. I think you represented the other questions quite well. Thank you. Any stand out in your mind?
No,
Any other
I
person
just,
you bring with you?
well, the electrical, and probably can bring somebody, but I mean, I can tell you that the project's going to be designed to meet all state, national electrical codes and everything else. And if you want, more, interaction, I guess more information than that, then we can.
Well,
plan
very
to
least,
somebody in.
this gentleman questions about
Yeah,
what the design looks like.
Can I speak?
sure.
You're gonna submit plans to the town that include a much more comprehensive
So,
design. I don't know what the town requires, so I don't know if the town, if this is the proper place to ask those questions, if the town requires all of the current electrical standards and they have somebody to do that.
so, and I, if that's not what happened, typically, you know, if we submit any electrical drawings, it usually doesn't happen with this process. It's more, well, it's designed with the utility, and then prior to construction, right, you go and get your building permit, you get your electrical permits, and that's where a lot of the details of the electrical are reviewed by the town. This is more of a land use and, you know, type procedure. And not that we can't provide those if
No, I understand.
you ask for them, but it's typically not part. It's not in this part of the process. And that's what I expect.
I understand that. I'm not gonna answer that. It requires, it's not required.
Could you leave a plan, Jeff, with me, the amended plan?
You can have this one if you want.
Great, thank you. Yeah,
And,
that'd be fine.
I can send you electronic copies.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I have is I have this one. And actually, that's the existing conditions.
So I have that. If you could just give me
This
the,
is.
is that amended
this is
as well?
actually changed.
Okay, then I will have both.
You
of them,
can
please.
take both. And I'll take both of those off there right now. Those are the old ones. I just brought them for reference, just in case we wanted to compare. Sorry, here's your pocket. I thought it was falling down.
No, I was just.
Any other input? If not, thank you very much for participation.
No, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback.
All right, let's move on to number 5, and that's. Well, actually, wait, number 5.
Yeah, so that got noticed. I was putting together the information when I realized that it was an engineer who had sealed the plan and not a surveyor, and there's some additional notes and things that need to be amended. So I'm gonna work with him on that, and that will come back at a different time. So there's no action on that. Okay.
We'll move on to the other business.
Flashes, but it's quite in general in here. It could just be for me, for Mickey.
Are you ready to go on?
We rating the other bits?
It's gonna be up to him.
I don't
Let me just,
You
let
got
me
this
just check in. Yeah, yeah. Last
Is there other
meeting was the
business?
first
I don't
time.
know. I think there's been-
No other than.
Everybody gets like the Conservation Commission and the council.
Sure, we can cover off some of these things.
They can go to the meetings, they can check from the staff. I apologize. Yes, we are ready to move on. I don't really have, I was working on, as you and I had discussed, some of the documents that we looked at the workshop. And I was hoping to have some changes to at least hand out this evening, but I overextended myself a little and I don't have those available.
So we have on other items.
No, but I will,
Thank you very much.
the items that are on there will be for the next meeting.
When's our next?
And I did talk to Ed today about timing of getting the zoning reorganization together. And next week, we're gonna meet and talk about that. So we're trying to keep that ball rolling as well.
We don't have the Joel schedule yet.
I emailed them, I indicated the 8th and the 8th, our next meeting, the 8th. So I told him that's when you all are hoping, anticipating to be able to do that. I haven't heard back yet.
What are we doing? The maps again?
Yeah,
Oh.
zoning map.
We're not done with that? Oh,
Finalizing.
We're that close.
That
We need to
close.
Look at them. and
just
say,
look at it and say, okay.
That's all we do. We're
So that's for the 8th.
That's the 8th, yeah. And the council was asking about it Monday night is too. So everyone's kind of like, is map done? Yeah.
Just so we're clear, and we did all the work with Joel, and now the board needs to look at it.
We're hoping we don't find it. But
Well, how do you see that happening? Are you looking, is everyone just looking at it? Looks good. Are you going through sections of it? What's the procedure like that look for you? Yeah, okay.
Dawn and I did. that.
Yes, that's what I thought.
To many hours. I don't think it's necessary. Dawn, I don't know how you feel, but I don't think it's necessary. I think what I see is an overview on the wall,
Mhm.
hopefully in the other room. With a projector and his computer and him showing the overview. And if a board member has a specific area, oh, let's go look at that area. We'll go do that. Because of some history or concerns or. And just clean that kind of thing up that's random.
Mhm.
They
Otherwise.
better zoom in on Carlton Pond Road, whatever. Make sure all that was right.
There you go. So.
I think that's a good way to do it, though. You guys represented us. We don't need to look through that was the whole point of you guys doing it. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Yes, sir.
The discussion earlier was that before we voted on. So everybody can look at their own property and make sure that it's there.
So, okay, so repeat that back. Clear.
The discussion with Joel last time we talked about it was that before we voted on that. It was going to be posted to public voters with a link for the public to go and do the maps.
So basically, the next action would be for us to look at it. All agree that we like it. There's no formal vote on it, and we post it for public review.
Yeah.
And how long would you suggest we do it?
We clearly give people time to review it, and then come back and tell us if there's an issue.
Is that agreeable?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's it. It's cast in stone. I mean, we're gonna get,
It's a living document.
it's a living
Yeah.
document.
Right. But what we want to make sure we didn't in error put part of somebody's property.
Some people aren't gonna care and some people are
Right.
really gonna care.
Yes, yes, you're very.
Now, does town council have to approve it before? Once public reviews it, then town council approves it? Do they need to approve it? Is that something they have to approve?
What I'm wrestling with, the work we did was verify, digitize what was
Right.
already on the map.
Right.
Right,
So it's the same map.
Changes, we're moving it from paper to digital.
Right.
So that's the goal, is that we didn't make any
Yeah.
mistakes. And then we're gonna post it online to make sure people didn't find a mistake that we might have missed. That,
So
the
then
hope is that
2 week period, nobody says anything, then we vote on it.
then we could vote on it and say, we're gonna accept the digital as being our
Okay.
The
new,
official.
our new.
And then, okay,
We'll have to have the town clerk seal it, so we know.
Yep.
That is the map and
This is the version.
have the PDF, and then we'll have someone tracking it digitally, and
town council doesn't have to do anything with
I
it.
would say.
they're gonna look at it after you
That's
all.
it, decision.
Okay.
I think once we
Gotcha.
say, here's the
We're good.
digitized version, we're done with it. And to me, what Aaron's saying is it's gonna go on, that's gonna go on,
Hmm.
long period of time, all we're doing is giving them a 2 period to
That's-
have a chance at it,
Yeah.
because they have,
Is it gonna stay on our website? For people to reference whenever they want, or is that
As soon
more?
as we have it
behind that?
digitized, we'll have the official PDF on there.
Mhm.
And then we will hopefully have the access for the public to have to the digital files where you can do searches. There's a lot, we get tied to the assessing information, so there's a lot of things that you can do with that. So the idea is, yes, it will be online in 2 forms.
Yeah,
Nice.
so the shape file and. the
Yeah.
PDF. So, yeah, the shape file's there, so.
That's the
you
fun
can
one.
download it. Yeah.
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 So
I sat around on there for like an hour going around. I'm like, ooh.
so again, I think it'd be their decision where they want. But we'll have done our work.
but there's no public hearing and official, like, going through that process, because it's supposedly the same.
We didn't make any changes.
Yeah.
Right, we didn't, or we didn't intentionally make any changes.
Intentionally. So I brought today we received large copies from KB cog of plans that are associated with the 23 update, the comprehensive plan update. So I brought them in case anyone wanted to look at them. There are 12 of them, but I pulled out the zoning map. What we have to date, what I believe that Joel will be showing you is one of those folded up maps there in case anyone wanted to peruse the maps.
You all have the ability to show us the overview in any detail.
Mhm.
That's what we did. That's exactly. And we went map by map by map.
The only change we made was to bring it back in line with the paper. Right? When they did it, scanned them in, they weren't exactly right, but. It should
Yeah.
be
And he documented all those changes. So unless it didn't get done, or it fell through the cracks, or digital land did something to it. Which would
Digitally.
be agreeable. And I don't think there's any action necessary.
No,
There will
just
be
an update.
2 weeks, the meeting after that. Any other?
Where are we at with, I know I missed the last work session and I don't, was there more discussion on tying in planning board activities with the comprehensive plans and the goals and objectives there?
It's on the radar, but we haven't formally prioritized any of that
Okay.
yet. We're
Okay.
talking about policies and procedures and then, yeah, moving forward, you have to have that laid out to know what's gonna be on one agenda so we can achieve the important things. The important and not necessarily urgent things, right?
Yeah.
Relative to the action we took tonight on the first application. We voted to, basically accept the applications or deemed it.
Thank you.
So the clock is ticking,
Mhm.
right? Wait, 39 days.
35 days.
The clock is ticking on that relative to us having to take an action on it. It could be accepting it, denying it, but it's an action. We have to take an action in 35 days.
Now, I'm not familiar, and I'm just gonna look at you because you're more familiar with that law. I know some towns, for better or for worse, if you want to utilize a non-conforming aspect of a building, you could tear the whole building down if you leave a little piece of a wall.
Yeah, that's good.
And I was wondering during that, I'm like, do they allow if you leave
No.
some of the I don't know.
6% now. Again, if you added in the underground plumbing, the earthwork, the slab, does that equal 40% of the value? Probably not on a garage, but maybe on a house, if you left the whole foundation. There's arguments to be made, but and there are metrics, complicated metrics to kind of evaluate that. And say, well, if the tax assessor went out there, would they say that property is 40% of the value? The structure is 40% of the value that it was before.
Mhm.
So if it was a really rundown place and a really nice slab, I don't know. So again,
It's kind of that substantial start question. It's a little gray.
Yeah, the law is the law, and And again, I know the law really well because I have to implement it on a regular basis. So I happen to know that one in very fine detail. And the last thing we want to do is get the town suspended. And it doesn't take much. And if FEMA does, even the state comes in and does a cab, when they come in and do an analysis, we're not following the plans. And the FEMA person comes with them, they go, you're out, you're suspended. And period. Any grant you've got in place, any movement you got in place, it's bad. It's really bad if that happens for a town like Winthrop. You know, there's towns like Lebanon and some other towns in the state that have like, 75, 90 people. They really don't have anybody in the floodplain. They're kind of like, man, we don't really care. Kick us out of the plan. But, like Winthrop, I'm sure that would be impactful. If there was a flood, but you also can't apply for public assistance funds, hazard mitigation funds. You can't apply for those, and any application you have is suspended. So you're not going to get any funds. So that's kind of a scary thing too.
And I felt like they were very clear on what the issue that was defined was when they left.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it could be very small. He could be within an inch and just have to add a little concrete. It could be very simple, or it could be complicated. But because of everything going on in that lot, it could be challenging. Because if he raises the height, well, the height of the building is gonna have to come down because the height's measured off the ground, not off the slab.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if we're talking inches or.
What if we what if he hauled dirt in, maybe like a 1 foot big
Right, but
Affect his height.
look where that stream is.
Yeah.
You can't haul in material there.
No.
We would say no. The fact they're not touching it, I thought the plan was good. They weren't touching it.
Hmm.
They weren't really being impactful to the environment.
That's a stream.
Well, I don't know if it's truly defined as a stream. It's not on the USGS topo. If anything, it's an ephemeral or perennial stream. It's a drainage ditch. So it's not defined as a stream, but
Drive's got many of them.
I was gonna say, but it
Much
does
bigger
go,
than
it goes directly into the lake. So we're not gonna say, yeah, you wanna change that. Or add fill, so yeah.
Any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
Got a motion?
We're gonna wait, Jamie. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, folks. Next meeting is the 8th.
When do we have Benny coming back?